precise, MSNBC. And this is a story that broke yesterday, and it set the whole Twitter universe on fire. It made everything go crazy, okay? Because what happened was CNN and MSNBC plan to lay off hundreds of employees and cut costs again. Now, we've been following this story since November, and it's been a continuous downfall. Now, I feel sorry for all the workers who are, just doing their job at corporate media, right? The establishment system, I feel no sympathy for, but there are people that are trying to, make a living. But perhaps maybe if CNN decided to, and MSNBC actually invested in actually doing media and journalism instead of pandering, perhaps things would be different. But this is the extinction level event that I've been talking about. And this is only the beginning because it is a sinking ship. CNN plans to lay off hundreds of employees, cut costs, and this is what's going on. CNN boss Mark Thompson reportedly plans to announce massive layoffs Thursday, just days after he warned top on-air talent, including Jake Tapper and Anderson Cooper, that they ought to avoid prejudging President Trump. Now, this also has to do with the fact that ABC recently had to settle with Donald Trump. The ratings challenged cable news pioneer will lay off hundreds of employees as it refocuses on the business around the global digital audience, CNBC reported Wednesday, citing people familiar with the matter. Now, MSNBC is completely different. It's part of the Comcast portfolio, but MSNBC is also in that chopping block. The job cuts come as CNN, owned by Warner Brothers Discovery, looks to rearrange its linear TV lineup and build out digital subscription costs, CNBC said, adding that it will help CNN lower production costs and consolidate teams. Some shows produced in New York or Washington may move to Atlanta, where production can be done more cheaply. That's code for they probably can't afford their New York or Washington studios anymore. And that's a bad thing. If you're a multi-billion-dollar corporation and you can't afford that anymore, it means you're not getting the views. And that means every time you see CNN playing at the airport, just wonder, how many times is CNN being played on somebody's smartphone, laptop, computer, or television? Remember that? NBC News, owned by Comcast, is also planning job cuts later this week, according to the report. While there's no exact number, the layoffs will be well under 50. Comcast and Warner Brothers Discovery did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The Washington Post, owned by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, said earlier this month it would lay off 4% of its workforce, or less than 100 employees, in a bid to cut costs as the stored newspaper grapples with growing losses. People are not going to traditional media anymore. Now, look, call me old-fashioned, but I do like reading the Chicago Tribune. It's a local newspaper here, but it's very clear to me that people's tastes in regards to how they get their news has drastically changed. We're mostly all connected to the internet, but there's nothing better than owning a piece of paper. But remember, a lot of our newspapers are owned by the establishment, and in turn, many, especially the up-and-coming generations, question the system as is. In November, the Associated Press said it would cut about 8% of its workforce as it looks to modernize its operations and products. News of CNN's culling comes as Thompson reportedly cautioned staffers against expressing any outrage of their own during the inauguration. Thompson, a former BBC and New York Times executive, conveyed a virtual editorial meeting Sunday that included Tapper, Cooper, and scores of other senior news personalities to discuss CNN's coverage of the inaugural ceremonies that took place the next day in Washington, D.C., according to the Status newsletter. During the meeting, Thompson made it clear that he did not want the coverage to relitigate the past, according to the Status reporter Oliver Darcy, an allusion to CNN's historical hostile relationship with Trump, something that they profited off of heavily. What people forget in the aftermath of the first Trump term after 2016, corporate media got a huge boost. Now, Trump did them a favor, especially with all of his loudmouth statements and everything else that he was doing. And it was a time in which corporate media was fueling Trump derangement syndrome. But like with any fad, it eventually dies out. And when Biden and Harris or during their term as for their administration, all that outrage simmered and went away. And maybe perhaps CNN and MSNBC or NBC thought that they would recapitalize on what they had in 2016, but that wasn't going to happen because much can change between the first term and now the second term of Donald Trump. Thompson asked his charges to avoid editorializing as well as to steer coverage away from focusing on Trump's legal problems, including convictions for falsifying business documents related to the alleged Stormy Daniels hush money payment, according to the report. Instead, he urged CNN staffers to focus on Trump's second term and to be open-minded about the next 4 years, according to the status. A CNN spokesperson declined to comment at the end of the call. Thompson reportedly opened the floor to allow staffers to ask questions, but nobody spoke up. That's code word for follow orders. Do not shake the boat. We're losing viewers. It's always about the viewership. It's always about the dollars. Always about the money. And I'm noticing everyone here in the live stream chat is saying, yes, the establishment media is going under. Many of you are playing small little violins, but that's okay. That's okay, everybody. Listen, everybody. I predicted that this would happen. And it feels good to be proven correct, but I just wasn't expecting this massive collapse that we are witnessing in real time. A CNN spokesperson declined to comment, as we said. What Thompson and other top brass had communicated was clear, and none of the meeting participants really had the desire to question the guidance. On Tuesday, Thompson conveyed yet another virtual editorial call to reiterate his message. Thompson told CNN staff that they should remain tough-minded in coverage, while at the same time be fair-minded. During the call, Virginia Mosley, CNN's executive director, joked that CNN was out of practice handling the relentless news cycle generated by Trump, a challenge that will quickly intensify in the coming years. Thompson's strategy marks a shift in the network's coverage of Trump under the former CNN boss, Jeff Zucker. CNN has struggled to keep up with MSNBC and Fox News in a ratings race, which was reflected in the numbers for the inauguration. Fox News, which shares common ownership with the Post, dominated television viewership during Trump's inauguration, drawing in 10.3 million viewers between 11:30 a.m. and 1 p.m., surprising all other networks. ABC was 4.7 million viewers, NBC was 4.4 million, and CBS was 4.1 million followed. And CNN was dead last. All right. The lesson here, the important notes to take away from this. We are the new media. And this goes for all of you as well, because information is being shared at every single second of every single day. Every day we're being updated, and corporate media in its current form has not adapted to this changing environment. This goes for CNN, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, CBS, Washington Post, because for too long they did dominate the algorithm. They still do by some extent, but they don't have the influence because people now have the option of looking away. Now, the one roadblock that is benefiting the establishment is that there's a thing called the algorithm. So that means you, the viewer, have to look harder for independent media. You, the viewer, have to double check that you're still allowed to follow your favorite independent media content creator, and that you, the viewer, now have to work double time in order to find out news that you don't want to see from the establishment media. Now, the one thing I really love about this is that this is a sign of a changing environment, but also I have a sense of dread here because I could see the censorship intensifying, but also I could see those who were formerly part of the establishment media trying to come into our backyard and in turn having the algorithm favor them, having their own opinion and their own perspectives and points of view, which in turn benefits the establishment. And it's very clear that, yes, there are other larger podcasts out there that have more friendly ties to big tech as well as to the political parties. So we will see something of an iteration of Fox News or CNN eventually in the corporate media, in the establishment, in the new media space, which means, again, you, the viewer, have to work harder to find real independent media, real truth tellers. But that's what happens. And unfortunately, there is also the concern of all independent media eventually being pushed out. Because even though Elon Musk has said that we are the new media, there's always a caveat. There's always the risk because Twitter, X, Facebook, Meta, YouTube, owned by Google, it's not public, it's all private. And in turn, there's always that risk of when's the day when it's finally all over and the music stops. So, for everybody that is watching, for everybody that is hearing this, on the one hand, the dinosaurs are dying out. There's a whole new environment out there. Adapt and overcome or die out.